approximately 2 years or so since I last did an update. I've been busy, life has gotten in the way. I've got involved with other pursuits and activities, but it's time to make a speedy re-emergence back into the bosoms, the fond bosoms of the vinyl community. So what have I been doing? Well, I've been busy with life, been getting on, raising my 3 beautiful children, loving my wife even more than I thought was humanly possible. And I've been collecting a lot of really nice records, such as this one, which I'll come to in a later video. It's an original of Spyro Gyra's debut, St. Radagund's. This is on B&C, but I'll show those later on whenever I get the mood to come back on. Before I start, I want to give a big shout out to 2 of my best buddies in the VC, 2 of whom I've been in contact with more or less continuously since I stopped making videos 2 years ago approximately. The first one is Bobby Gass. Bobby's a huge fan of Van Morrison. Van Morrison's guitarist is Dave Keary, who's a Limerick man like myself, and through a mutual acquaintance I got him to get Van Morrison to, can you show this, Ben? To kindly sign this copy of a recent Van Morrison album. It was released about 5 years ago for Bobby. I had held on to it. I've got it since last October, but I've held on to it for a while because I had the intention of handing it to Bobby with some other items as well. I also gave Dave a copy of Veed and Fleece, but Van refused to sign it because he had some kind of a falling out with Warner, and he I'll tell you the story about it, Bobby, personally when I'm talking to you next, but he refused to sign it anyway. So that one is going to you as well, but it's going to be unsigned. I also want to give a shout out to to Erla Suave, Jimmy, and last year Jimmy gave myself and Dave McCarthy an extremely generous gift of a lot of early Blue Notes and jazz items that he got from a collection, including these. This is just a sample of 2 of them, Cecil Taylor's Conquistador and Andrew Hill's Compulsion. So again, I'll belatedly do it, and Jimmy, hope you're keeping well. I look forward to seeing you soon, please God. So recently myself and my youngest son Jamie, we went to Scotland and I picked up these items, so I'll quickly go through them. I don't feel very discursive. I'm out of practice completely given my 24 months absence, but I'll give it a go. So the main find that I got this one in Edinburgh, way down at the bottom of the Royal Mile. The shop is called Unknown Pleasures, and they had this on their website. It's an original on Transatlantic of the sophomore album by Jan Dukes the Grey, which would be a band from the East Midlands in England. A fantastic acid folk stroke progressive group. This features 3 long extended tracks with liberal smatterings of acidic instrumentation, but I'll actually review that more properly in my acid folk video. And a hi to Alan Ward as well. Alan has been in touch with me quite a bit recently on Facebook. Hi Alan, hope you're keeping well in sunny Norwich, or do you live in London now? You're from Norwich, I believe. So in Scotland, my main reason for going to Scotland was to take my son to see Glasgow Celtic. Glasgow Celtic are an expatriate Irish, well, they're a Scottish team but with profound Irish origins. I've been following them my whole life, and I went to bring my son to see 2 games there. One was a home game, the other one was an away game. So I'll intersperse this video with some footage. While we were there, we did a stadium tour and I got to meet... Alright, so... Okay. Lubomir Moravcik, and anyone who's into soccer in the late 1990s and the early 2000s would be familiar with the name Lubomir Moravcik.
attacking with Moravcik. Away from White, away from McAllister, and away from Leighton. That's superb from Moravcik.
For me, is he one of the best I ever played with. I mean, still to this day, I don't know if he was right-footed or left-footed. I mean, he could hit the ball, free kicks, passes. Yeah, he was so good, it was unbelievable. I mean, and also a good person. I think that's the most important thing.
Indeed, he wore this very cap that I'm wearing, and he dedicated a badge to my young son, Jamie. So I was absolutely thrilled to meet him. I just couldn't believe it. Nearly shat myself when I met him. Couldn't believe it. My cousin Brian Rooney was over visiting as well, and he stayed with us and also did the stadium tour. But while I was in Glasgow, I went to a shop called Fop, which I got a recommendation from John Kiefer. Hi John and Mark, if you guys are watching. Hope you guys are doing well. I love your videos as usual, and Mark, I love your radio show. I've lost your number in my phone. I think I've communicated that in a few messages to you, so I hope you may text it on to me some stage or leave a PM to me. This was the only record that I got in Fop. It's a reimagining of Gil Scott-Heron's last album, and incidentally, Gil Scott-Heron's dad played for Celtic in the 1960s. I think he may have been to play, the first black player to play in Scotland, maybe even in the United Kingdom, I'm not sure, but he played for the beloved Hoops, Glasgow Celtic. So this is a reimagining of that album by Makaya McCraven, who's a Chicago artist who produces a lot of work on that label that everyone's talking about at the moment, whose name eludes me. Skipping to Edinburgh, in a place called Vinyl Villains or something like that, down near Holyrood, I got Third Year's Band, an original on Harvest. This is with the boxed EMI pressing. Didn't have this one, and this was £20, so an absolute steal. Delighted to get that. So I have all three of their first albums, and that's me finished with those guys. Then there's another store in Glasgow called Monorail Music. There wasn't much there, but I did pick this one up, and this one is 2018 Record Store Day reissue of Honeyman, which is a live record by Tim Buckley. Tim Buckley, despite his name, did not have any links with Celtic. It's a very Irish name, Buckley, but he didn't have any links with Celtic, unfortunately. If only he could play, maybe he would have graced our beloved Hoops. This album mostly features tracks from his later era works, the inferior workings, you know, the Greetings from LA and Sophronia and such. But I have to say that the playing on this is inspired, very raucous, and his lyrics are quite racy, and my wife wasn't too impressed with them, let's say. I was, but anyway, it's a different story. I also picked this one up in going back to Edinburgh, because we visited Edinburgh as well. I picked up this record by the British progger. It's called Nigel Maslin-Jones, and it's Sentinel. I think this may be his second. He did 3 really good albums. One's called Flying Away or Buzzing Away or something, and he did this one as well. It's kind of progressive folk. Very nice. Got this for tenner, and the shop I got this one was just around the corner from Hibs Stadium in Easter Road. It's called Elvis Shakespeare. But Hibs, of course, another famous Irish Scots club, also playing the green and white. Not as good as Celtic, but we did steal a couple of their best players from them, notably my current hero, Lee Griffiths, who scored a hat-trick at the game that myself and Jamie were at. The other game we went to was a Celtic game away against Livingston, and I have to tell you, Livingston is like the anus of the earth. It's just a shithole of a town. It's out in the middle of nowhere. There's no public transport. There's 2 railway stations, both equidistant from the town centre, and there's no pubs or any amenities at all. So moving back to Edinburgh, I picked this one up in some store I can't recall the name of. It's reissue of Linda Perhack's Acid Folk's classic Parallelograms. The original of this is not worth getting from what I understand. I do know someone that has it. What I understand is that the sound is atrocious on it. This one I haven't actually managed to get around playing yet, but are you laughing at that?
Mom.
Okay. Oh, she's probably bitching about me talking about Tim Buckley and her aversion to his lyrics. Okay, moving back again to... I should have organised these better, shouldn't I? Moving back to Glasgow, this one I got also in that store, Monorail Music. This is an original first issue of UK issue of Kim Crimson's third, Lizard, which is just excellent. Not as good as Lark Song and Aspic or Red, or indeed their debut, but it would certainly be their fourth best to my ears anyway. And I also picked up some CDs, and speaking of psych folk, these were all euro fines, or £1 fines. Speaking of psychedelic folk, I wonder would any of those latter psychedelic folk acts have existed had it not been for the likes of Incredible String Band and in particular Tyrannosaurus Rex, featuring Mark Bolan. And this is an expanded edition 2 CD package of My People Were Fair and had sky in their hair, but now they're content to wear stars on their brows. Whatever. That's what you call an anachronism, Benjamin. That means something misplaced in time. I also got this one, which I was delighted to get, which is a triple CD box set of Frank Zappa with his Les Paul in the front. It's outtakes of guitar segues between songs that have from live performances of tracks, featuring no vocals, just extraordinary stuff. I also have this is his 1970s band, mostly culled from performances in Japan and England and America. He also did one called Guitar, which is a double LP, which I have, which features tracks from his 1980s band. I also got this one in an Oxfam for €1. I haven't listened to it yet. It's the first two albums by the Greco-Irish band Nirvana, who had relocated to the UK. Yeah, so to be discovered at a later stage. I never had this. I've always been looking for it. Crossings, one of the Mwandishi band's albums. Never had this one. I had the other two, so I was delighted to get that one. Fair Night is a relatively recent acid folk group. That was a nice pickup. The opening track is called Song for Ireland, and I expected that to have been a reimagining of the Luke Kelly track, but it isn't. And David Graham does a great version of that as well. Another folk classic, Jackson C. Frank, again with 5 bonus tracks. This is a reissue. These were all £1. And this album is, I think, a very good contrapunct to the bad times we're having at the moment. I used to love this back when I was a youngster in the 1990s, the mid 1990s, when I was backpacking around the world. I had a copy of this and I brought it with me. It's Curtis Mayfield's, I think it was his last record, called New World Order, and he basically released this and recorded it one lyric at a time, or one line at a time. It's very much a mixed bag. There's some exceptional tracks and some really rubbish ones. Some good production on this as well. Organised Noise are on it as well, and features a cast of thousands, including Mavis Staples. There's some really beautiful tracks in it, and all of them are extremely positive. And I've been listening to this quite a bit since I came back, particularly given the deflated atmosphere that pervades at the moment. It lifted my spirits hugely. And finally, absolutely thrilled to get this one, Chris Thompson. He is a Kiwi, and he recorded a number of albums in the UK. He did a very famous one for the Village Thing label, which is a Bristolian label, which is very rare, hard to get. And this is a Sunbeam Records reissue of that particular album with a lot of outtakes. And on the topic of Chris Thompson, one of my best charity shop finds is this Irish sampler by a label called Thrust Records, and it features 3 or 4 tracks by Chris Thompson when he was invited to Ireland to record for that fledgling label at the time. This was recorded in 1973. delighted to get that. I bought this for £1.50 in the local charity shop here in town. And that's my load. Take care, guys.
Yo ho ho, off we go. What do you know? It's 9 in a row. Bye bye, Rangers. Celtic's on the ball again, on their way to make it 10. Bye bye, Rangers. You can bomb about your great defenders, sing and shout about your no surrender. Let us give you this sweet tip, we'll be